In this video, I'm going to give you 3 important tips for each support hero in Overwatch 2. Let's go ahead and get straight into it. Let's start with Ana. So, the first tip with Ana is that when you are scoped in, your bullets leave a really obvious visible trail. When you're not scoped in, they only shoot a small projectile that's much harder to see. And the reason this matters is at high level play, you'll find yourself in scenarios where you'll try to see if you can just hit your allies with the normal shot, the hipfire shot, because then you might not give your position away wherever it is that you are. So if you're playing here and you don't want them to notice, if you're scoped in, then those bullet trails are so obvious, they're going to see you and they're going to dive you and then try to take you out of the game. But if you just do this, they may never notice that you're here. The next tip with Ana is sometimes you want to play side angles. It depends on the map whether or not to do it. In a lot of cases, you just want to play behind your team, but on some maps and some setups, it's actually okay to play off to the side as long as your team can still guard you. And one of the reasons that you'll want to play here sometimes is it makes it much easier to hit really good anti-nades from a side angle in certain situations in certain maps. So be aware that side angles are not always a bad thing when playing Ana. It just depends on the map. And the third tip I have with Ana is to be aware of the ins and outs of being scoped in. So scoped in makes you have hit scan instead of a projectile, which is much better for being accurate. But it comes at some cost. So first off, when you're scoped in, your movement speed is very low, which makes you a prime target for hit scans like Ashe and Widowmaker, characters like that, even Kiriko. And the other thing is you have to be aware that if someone is low and they're nearby, that time to zoom in before you can shoot is 1/4 of a second, and that may not seem like much, but that can be the difference between life and death. If you get that heal started 1/4 of a second sooner, someone definitely could live because of that. And generally, if you're in a safe spot and you're not afraid to give away your position to the enemy, then you being scoped in is generally going to be better because it's the same fire rate, but it's 100% hit scan, which makes it much easier to hit your shots on your teammates. All right, so let's move on to Baptiste. So the first tip I have for Baptiste is one that I hope you're aware of. So Immortality Field. The ideal scenario for Immortality Field is to place it behind some kind of cover so they can't shoot it, but to where it still covers your allies. So it's going to do a straight line LOS. So if you use it right here, anyone back here will not get the Immortality Field. But if you place it back from a wall a little bit, it will cover the side angle. So what that allows you to do is place it right here and then stand right here shooting, and they won't be able to kill the Immortality Field, and you can just stand in it and be completely invincible, which is really OP. And whenever you can, you want to try to force that to happen. But don't only do it that way. There are times where a teammate is going to die, and the only way to save them is just throw it out in the open, just to give them that 1 or 2 extra seconds of life. That can also change everything, so don't be afraid to throw it out like that. But in an ideal situation, the best way you can ever get to do it is just on a corner like this, or on a wall. It's based on a corner. The next tip with Baptiste is that be aware he can shoot and fire at the same time. This is a little bit harder to do on console, but on PC, it's really insane. Even on console, if you're lined up pretty well, you can kind of do it with movement instead. But you can actually hold both buttons. Like, you can hold down the right, your secondary fire, and then fire in between the shots with your primary fire. So healing, hold the heal, and then press the shooting button during the downtime from the shots. And that allows you to get your damage and your healing at the same time. Also, a little bonus tip here. If you hit someone with a direct heal with Baptiste, it heals them for more than hitting the ground. That's not one of the tips for the 3 tips, but I just wanted to throw that out there real fast in case you didn't know that basic fact about Baptiste. All right, the last tip with Baptiste is be aware of your exo boots, and specifically, one thing that you can do is keep a small charge, like at all times. So when you crouch, it charges, and if you stay crouched, it stays charged. But you don't want to do a big charge, because then everyone will shoot you while you're just stuck in the air doing the hang time. So if you're just out in the open, what you want to do is tap crouch, and when it goes away, tap crouch, and then tap crouch. And the reason you want to do this is then if you do get surprised by something, you can do a little mini jump that's slightly bigger than a small jump, which can throw off someone's aim really bad. Although be a little careful at high levels with it, because it could backfire potentially in that situation. But another thing related to this is if you are near a ledge that you can jump up onto like this, if you know your jumps by heart, you know how much of a charge you need, when you're playing near this position, you want to keep that jump ready at all times. So you charge it and then wait. And if it goes away, charge it, then wait. And the reason you do this is so if suddenly you get jumped by something, you don't have to wait for that charge. Instead, what happens is it's already charged, and then you're like, oh no, I got jumped, and then you jump up onto the ledge in order to get out instantly, and saving that little half second of time of the charge could easily be enough to save your life. All right, the next tip is with Brigitte. So we're gonna do 3 tips for her. The most important one that every Brigitte needs to know is when you are point blank on someone, beating on them like this, you do not stand still, you don't walk forward and back. You're trying to dodge them as if you were shooting a gun. So when you actually get close, you're gonna crouch and spam left and right in order to make it as hard to hit you as physically possible. If you stand still, like if you get in range and you just do this, they're just gonna shoot you in the face and it's over. So that's like something every Brig needs to learn. Pretty much all higher level Brigs know to spam, you know, AD crouch spam or left right crouch spam when they get close like this. Another tip for Brigitte is that you can hold your primary fire and your secondary fire at the same time. And what that effectively does, it depends on which one you started with, but say you start with the primary fire, which is what you're going to want to start with. If you're holding your primary fire and you're swinging, you can then hold your secondary fire and it'll get your shield out. And then all you have to do is let go of secondary fire in order to start swinging again. The highest level Brigs generally hold it like this. And whenever they're walking around, you'll always see them just always swinging. And the reason they're doing that is so that they can alternate easily between these two things. And the reason that's a good habit to form is because then when you get close on someone, you can do this thing where you tap them and shield and tap them and shield and tap them and shield. And that way you're just ready to shield when they fire back at you. And there's a chance that you'll just eat the shot by doing this. The next one's kind of a higher level tip. So Brig has a shield. It has 250 HP. The shield can't be headshot, which is really important when fighting against Cassidy or Ashe or something like that. If you see a teammate in trouble, or you see a Cassidy on your team who's using High Noon, you can shield bash to get in front of them and then try to shield for them. Now, this is a much higher level skill to acquire, but if you do it at the right time, you can definitely win a game by saving a teammate like this. I've literally won games before by saving a teammate's life by being a little mini Reinhardt for them. And one small bonus tip here as Brig, which you should know, but also make sure you know, is hitting people with the whip shot procs Inspire, which makes your nearby teammates heal over time. So whenever you can, you want to just tap enemies as often as possible with the whip shot, just so that you can proc Inspire and keep your healing up. All right, so let's get to some tips with Kiriko. So Kiriko, one really important tip for her is her Protection Suzu, the Invuln or whatever that heals 50. It has a small knockback effect on enemies. And so one really big brain thing you can do is if there's a melee hero like Reinhardt or Brigitte or somebody like that just chasing you who wants to be close, Reaper's another good example, and you want to get them further away from you so they stop staying in contact with you, when they're chasing you can throw the Suzu in order to push them back that little bit. That could make the difference between life and death. All right, next tip with Kiriko is that you can throw a kunai during the reload of the heal tag. So what effectively that means is heal tags, reload, throw kunai, heal tags, reload, throw kunai, heal tags, throw kunai. So something like this. But it also you have to be very careful not to just miss tons of healing because of this. It's much easier when the enemy is kind of right near your target. It's a lot harder when they're like all the way over there. You have to be like really pro level to be able to just like do a whip shot like that and actually hit it. But that is something to do, and at a higher level Kiriko, you're gonna have to be able to do that probably in order to get the absolute most value out of her. All right, so the next tip with Kiriko is about the heal tag. So first off, the lock-on for these heal tags is only 35 meters, and also be aware they can't go through walls. So even if you're locked on, they're not going to heal them. And if you heal a target and it's locked onto them and they move behind a wall, it'll hit the wall instead of the target and you won't heal them. But that's not the biggest thing. The most important thing about this I want to give you a tip about is that the tags go significantly further than the lock-on. So you can see there, the tags go all the way into that wall. It goes maybe like 70, maybe 100 meters. So what you can do because of this is you can be fighting over here, and then your flanking Widow needs heals. Instead of having to teleport over to get into range, what you can do is you can just look at her from far away and throw a bunch of tags in her direction, and they will go the whole way. So you'll see the tags will go all the way there. And if the Widow was right there, then if they were paying attention and smart enough, they could get the tags. And if you're in voice comms with them, you can try to explain to them that tags are coming their way. And hopefully they'll be able to figure that out. And at a higher level, they'll be smart enough to figure it out most of the time. But that would allow you to heal targets that are far beyond your range without having to take risks and reposition yourself. All right, so the next tip is for Lucio. We got 3 tips for him. This one is a really basic one, but most people don't even realize they're doing it. Do not use beat drop when jumping off a ledge, and don't jump when using beat drop in general. So let me show you what I mean. So if you jump off a ledge and use beat drop, you have to wait that long for it to engage, which is a huge opportunity for them to pick you out of the air or for them to boop you back in the air. Now, I don't have the clip, but I know I've seen it many times in my games where a Lucio comes off a ledge dropping beat and he gets booped back up into the air like 2 times, and he's just hanging out in the air for like 4 seconds, then just gets picked out of the air and dies. Another reason not to do it is it takes a long time to actually get down with the beat then, and they see it coming so they can prepare themselves. That extra second or 2 makes a big difference for them being ready for what's about to happen. So definitely stay on the ground and don't even jump when doing it, because even that adds a little bit of extra time. Try to build a habit of just hitting the button without jumping. Now, for some reason, I had this, and I know a lot of people have too, where you get this weird habit of where you always want to just jump when you press it, or you want to like jump off, like wall ride, and then jump off of a wall ride and then slam it for some reason, but it doesn't do anything other than make it like a bigger opportunity to get countered. The next tip for Lucio is it's important to learn how to play aggressive as Lucio if you want to be the best. Really good Lucios not only master their wall climb, but they master being basically a tracer, trying to boot people, disrupt people, and more importantly, just straight up kill people. Lucio does an insane amount of damage, actually, especially with headshots. So if you get really good, you can actually just farm people with Lucio. But don't forget to balance that with playing for your team, being able to speed boost for your team, being able to heal for your team, being able to do all the other stuff. But being able to do both will make a huge difference in whether or not you can climb as Lucio. The best Lucios can get in there and just kill people by themselves and assassinate people, but also know how to play as a healer and support at the same time. All right, the next tip with Lucio is that you can control the boop trajectory based on where you're looking. So first off, a standard boop will look something like that, for example. But if you look up, and especially if you crouch and look up underneath of them, you can boop them up like that. And you can control the boop angle based on whether you're above them, below them, whatever. And so keep that in mind when trying to boop someone. In case there's a bigger ledge behind them and you need to boop them over that big ledge, then you want to crouch and look up. If it's just a flat wall, it's just like a drop-off, then you just want to look standard or whatever, because you just want to boop them off. So be aware that there's different boop trajectories just based on your angle, of your view angle, and whether you're above and below them. All right, so Mercy, let's go ahead and get some tips for her. So with her new super jump in Overwatch 2, there's a really important new tip for her, which is you can, and this applied before, but it's even better now, is you can use her mobility to make yourself harder to hit when crossing an open space. So say I need to get there, well, I could just jump across like this. I can do a lot of fancy stuff now, like going up like this or something. Oh, that's a bad example, actually. But I can get like weird upward angles and then bounce at the end and things. Or I could, depending on the angle I'm coming from, I can control the angle really weird when I'm crossing an open space. I can come in like this and then come over like this and do things that are irregular, basically. It's hard to really show you on this exact spot. But you can make really irregular movements when crossing an angle now by looking up slightly or down slightly, depending on what you're trying to do, in order to make it just a little bit weirder to hit. Or you can even pull the Guardian Angel sooner if it's a small jump in order to like go up and things. So you can just do that when crossing open spaces to make yourself much harder to hit. The next tip with Mercy is one that will trigger a lot of people, but it is real. Any GM Mercy will tell you this. You need to learn how to use your pistol. Well, people will tell Mercy not to use the pistol at all. A really good Mercy can use the pistol and get kills. And not only that, you'll be able to have times where you can actually finish a kill because you're so good with it. And you'll, more importantly than anything, you'll be able to defend yourself when someone's on you. So a Genji dives you, nobody's going to help you. It's just you and Genji. You either stand there with your staff like a doofus, or you pull out the pistol and try to do as much damage as you can. And the reason why that matters really is because in a lot of cases, if they're good, you won't be able to kill them. But if you can hit a headshot or two before they kill you, now they're in your backline, for example, with half HP after you're dead, instead of being full HP, and then someone else might finish the kill. In my games, all the time, when I get jumped in a position where I can't defend myself, it's just me and no one's helping me, I pull out my pistol, and I've had times where I've won the 1v1, and I've had times where I've damaged the person who won the 1v1, and then he dies immediately after to like Soldier or Sojourn or something who doesn't have to do very much then in order to finish him off. Another tip with Mercy, it relates to the pistol, is the pistol is a great way to charge your ultimate when nothing's going on in the fight. So say you're waiting for the enemy to regroup. Well, because Mercy can jump into the air really well, she can get really high and get these weird angles to poke the enemy who's trying to regroup. And that will allow you to get a little bit of ult charge, get your Valkyrie a little bit faster, and then have it the next fight. Now, this is not a perfect example of where I could do this at, but ideally I'd be able to bounce up something like this and look over at their spawn or something and just poke at them and then, you know, jump up again and poke at their spawn. And while nothing's happening, you can do that and charge like 10, 20% on your ult or something. Or if you're really lucky, you just pick someone off randomly, which I have done, especially Anna's. But yeah, that's a really important high-level tip for Mercy, because the sooner you get your Valkyrie, the more likely you are to win a fight. All right, so Moira, I've got a really good tip for you guys. I love this tip. It's so much fun. So if you find yourself in a building with a flat roof, or flat ceiling, I mean, and a flat floor, what you can do is you can throw a heal orb straight up, or a damage orb, and then you can play next to it, and it's like someone else is healing you. And you combine that with the HP you get from using your secondary fire on people, and you'll be healing for almost 100 HP per second, which makes you basically invincible while you mow someone down with your secondary fire, which is a super OP thing to do. All right, so the next one is don't just tap heals unless you know what you're doing. So when someone's actively being shot at, the best way to be efficient on your heals is to heal them up almost to full and then let that heal finish off, the healing over time finish off. So you just hold it and then let go and let the heal over time finish the job. And the reason you want to do this is because if you just tap them in little bits and then you never fully heal them and they're getting shot at, and you find yourself just going tap, tap, oh crap, tap, whatever, you're baiting yourself into tapping, your heals will not regen. The healing will regen automatically when you're not healing anything. You're supposed to get it back from using your secondary fire on people, but it also just regens over time. But if you're constantly tapping like this instead of just holding, then it never charges, and you literally will never get it back. So ideally, you want to heal someone up to full and then let go. If they're actively engaged in a combat, though, you may just have to hold it forever until they're healed, like a normal heal. But generally, you just want to heal to full and let go. The only time you're going to want to tap to heal is if the fight just ended and the enemy's not going to come back for a while. Then you would just tap them and wait, and then tap them and wait. And you would just do this in order to get max regen and use the least amount of juice in order to heal them. But if you do that in an actual fight, it's going to just backfire on you generally. But, you know, you got to learn the ins and outs. There's a time and a place for all of it. But, yeah, that's like the tips with that. All right, the last thing here relates to Moira's orb again. You need to learn bounce angles. It's actually one of the most fun parts of Moira's kit, is everywhere you go, trying to visualize the bounce angle. So, for example, hopefully right here, I can get it to bounce between those 2 points and then come back across over to there. The longer you can keep the orb in play in a relative position, like a important position or a position where it's going to be doing something, the more value you get out of it when you otherwise just wouldn't be getting the value out of it. So one of the worst things Moiras can do because of this is you'll see newer Moiras always throw the orb down at an angle, which immediately takes the orb out of play. So if I throw it like that, it's gone. Unless you're in a room, it's just gone. Don't ever throw the orb at a downward angle. You either throw it straight down when there's a ceiling, or you're going to throw it straight forward as much as you can. You want it to be a straight shot in order to get it to bounce around somewhere like inside of this room. So I might go into here and be like, throw it like this. And then I know, okay, that was a weird wall, but it was supposed to bounce to the left. Also, you know, there are random spots on walls that just aren't flat, even though they look flat, which is always really weird. But yeah, you throw it in here and then be like, okay, now it bounces around in this room and then comes out, whatever. But keeping the orb in play is extremely important. Learning bounce angles is extremely important, and being able to make them up on the fly and be able to do them under pressure is the most important. So you might be in the middle of a fight getting shot at, and you've got to just like suddenly turn around and go, okay, right there. And then get it to bounce across and whatever, or wherever. You got to make that decision on the fly and make the right decision with your orb. And that will make a huge difference between playing Moira at a high level and a low level. All right, so Zenyatta, the first tip I have for Zenyatta is don't forget to use your heal orb when firing. Unless you're really committed and you really think you can get that kill and you don't want to lose your focus. Otherwise, don't forget that you can throw a heal orb while firing. So you can literally just like look over and press the button and change on someone. Or if you're lined up, you can just be shooting and then just kind of place the orb on them while shooting. But just don't forget that you can easily do the heal orb while firing. So, like, again, unless you're hyper-focused on someone, you think you're going to get the kill. If you're just spamming out a tank just to get some miscellaneous damage, make sure that you have that heal orb on someone who needs it. The next one is kind of hilarious. It's a very niche scenario tip, but it's important to be aware of this. That if you ever look down or emoted, which I don't even know... There we go. You'll notice Zenyatta does not put his feet on the ground. Now, the reason this is important is because Zenyatta does not make footstep noises, meaning nobody can hear you coming. So Zenyatta's kind of the perfect assassin in some ways, because you don't know where he's at unless you actually see him. So I've seen Zenyatas who go on the flank and then assassinate people. Not that I would recommend doing that, because Zenyatta's extremely vulnerable if he does that. But be aware that they can't hear you. So if you don't think they've heard you, and you're in some room or something, you can just move all you want, and they'll have no idea that you're in there. All right, so the last tip with Zenyatta relates to Transcendence. The big thing here is if your team has been hit by an anti, so either Ana's grenade or Junker Queen's ult, as of right now. In the future, there might be more heroes that have antis, but if they have anti-nade, obviously they can't be healed. And if you use Transcendence right at the start of an anti-nade, you're basically going to lose your entire Transcendence and heal almost nobody. Every second that anti-heal is on someone during Transcendence is a second lost to Transcendence. And since Transcendence is only a 6-second ability, that every second is really going to matter when you're healing 300 HP per second. So if you see them get hit by an anti-nade before you use Transcendence, then hold your Transcendence and don't use it till the anti-nade is just about to wear off, then go for the Transcendence. So you can get that max amount of time out of your Transcendence. And if that means they're going to die, then just don't use Transcendence, because it wasn't going to heal them anyway, and then they're just going to die. So keep that in mind when using Trance. Anti-heal is the hard counter to it, so you always want to play around the anti-heals and how the enemy's using them. All right, and that's everything I got for you guys. That's like 3 or more tips for every single support hero right now in Overwatch 2. I hope you found this video helpful. Feel free to subscribe for more Overwatch content in the short term. I'm trying to make tips and tricks and guides for all sorts of different things. If you're wondering about my credentials for making this video, I've been a top 500 support player, and I've played since Season 1, so that's where I'm coming from. I've seen it all, and I hopefully will be able to get more tips out there for you guys. I'm looking to make an advanced tips. I already made a beginner's tips guide, and I'm looking to make advanced tips and other things like that too. So anyway, I'm just rambling now. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope these tips were able to help you out. Hopefully there's something in here that will help make you a better support player in Overwatch 2.